24 hours a day, I'll give you love.
You can count on that.
Just let me be your ladybug, baby. 24 hours a day.
So let's start where I left off last devlog. I expressed my fear towards cooking. But let's now break it down. One approach to replicating cooking is treating cooking like a health bar. For example, this fish has 2 possible methods of cooking, frying and boiling, each say have about 100 health. Now each second that the food is in one of the cook stations, that health will go down until it reaches 0. The food will now be locked into one of the cook types. And any second it remains cooking after already being cooked, it starts eating away at the object's quality until burnt and unedible. Fairly simple, and I liked this, especially since if I were to let's say try and fry this boiled fish, it would just start immediately burning since it's already cooked. However, as I began making this, something extremely important kept nagging at me that I couldn't ignore. The fucking eggs. You don't need to be a philosopher to understand my desire. You feel the same as me. We yearn for the eggs to be fried on both sides. To detect which side is facing down, I can easily shoot out a raycast for either side, and each of these raycasts have their own health bar, which need to both be completed before the item can be considered cooked. And now, we have reason to flip the eggs and interact with the pan. Nice. Here is another question. Why do people do shit like this? I don't care. I just wanted it. You could theoretically let the food sit in the pan and cook, but if you want to speed up the process or are running late on an order, you can jostle it around to get it to cook faster. To demonstrate this, I started 2 cooks at the same time, jostling one but not the other. I have each cube turned dark purple once it is completely fried, and here on the right, after a short jostle time, all foods have been fried, while the left still has a long way to go. The way this works is whenever the cook function is called on the object, we check the food's current speed and use that speed value to determine how much cook health we take away. Therefore, the faster we jostle, the faster we cook. I like the option that this presents players with. This game could be as active or passive as you want it to be. Like a middle ground between something passive like Overcooked, where you just set the food down and wait, versus active, like in something like Cooking Simulator where you have to focus on the technique.
Wow, that was a lot of explaining for just one thing. So before I get into the deep fryer station I made, let me quickly go through a couple tiny things I did since last devlog. First thing is this UI element that counts up how much food you are holding. Figure this will be helpful when an order requires a specific number of French fries and you are trying to be exact so as to not be wasteful. Next, I did a fair bit of work on the look of the egg. I showed a glimpse of it last devlog, and despite it being placeholder, I kinda liked the pop it had. So with that in mind, I tried to just make it grow when it spawns. That didn't look great, but I wasn't ready to abandon it yet. I did this one animation years ago when I was first learning Blender, of an egg just crumbling apart like a rock, and I still like the way it looks. So I tried recreating it. First I got an egg shell and made it into a ton of chunks. And now in Godot, when I spawned the egg, I also spawned the broken shell too. This was cool. And if you are wondering how I made the egg whites jiggle, I followed this tutorial, but applied its teachings to an egg instead of boobs.
Well, this oven toast is brilliant, Sugar Booger, and your yolks are absolutely perfect, too. Oh, run away with me, my love.
That was Jimmy Neutron's dad, and this is the frying pan you have already seen. You have probably noticed this little bubbly frying effect throughout the video whenever I plop something into the frying pan. This is actually a bit more complicated than you might think. My initial idea was to do something like Breath of the Wild, where they just spawn a particle system on each food as it cooks. That's not hard to do, but I am cooking a lot more food at one time than Breath of the Wild is, so spawning particles for each one, as you can imagine, is terrible on performance. So what I did instead was I broke up the pan into 7 different areas, and anytime a food interlaps with one of these areas, I turn on the area's particle system. This looked good, And the best part is, even if I have tons of food in there, the maximum number of particle systems on at one time is 7, which saves a lot on performance. Man, I was happy with this, so much so that I used it for the bubbles that pop up on the deep fryer. Okay, I did a few other things as well that I want to talk about, but the video's getting kinda long, so I really just need to talk about the
Just let me be your ladybug. 24 hours a day, I'll give you love.
Sorry for being so annoying about this deep fryer shit. I am just excited about it for a lot of reasons. First reason is, this is actually a fast food thing. I feel like a lot of the stuff I have been making has just been about cooking in general, and it's very important to me that this game is about the magic of making fast food specifically, not just cooking in general, because I feel like that is an overdone idea. Another reason is it was a really fun challenge to program the logic for. And I guess that's where I will start. You may remember from my first devlog I played with a soup station where you stir objects to get them to cook faster. With some imagination, you can pretend this is a deep fryer. So I began making my deep fryer function the same way. However, one tiny challenge completely changed my idea here. Notice how in the earlier version, the water is super shallow to kind of give the illusion that the food is floating. Well, I didn't want an illusion for the end product, so I needed to learn how to calculate an object's buoyancy. And here is how you do it. First step in doing this is getting the height of the top of the water and subtracting the height of the current food. This is the object's depth. For this example, let's say it's a depth of 3. We now need to calculate a force to push the object upward. We do this through adding a tiny default value to the object's upwards velocity every frame, let's just say 0.5, times our object's depth. Which in turn, calculates how strong the force pushing the object up should be. Meaning, the deeper the object is, the stronger the upwards force. This is why, once the object makes it to the top, its depth is 0, so it's no longer being pushed upwards. I glossed over a few things here, like calculating the drag, acceleration, deceleration, deforestation, linear damp, angular damp, and all that stuff, but this is the bulk of how the calculation works. And after figuring this out in game, I went a completely different direction than stirring because it was so fun. In normal deep fryers, you plop the fries in, and when they finish up, they float to the top and you pull out the basket. Would have been easy to do, but I wanted some more active than just setting it down and waiting. I kept thinking, but then I watched this episode of Binging with Babish where he makes baguettes from the movie Chef. Did you see that? I will play it again. The basic idea is they throw the shit in, and then push it down, and when it's done they take it out. So with this rhythm in mind, I tried it out for myself, and I loved it. You throw the food in, and it floats to the top. You then have to get this potato masher looking thing that my girlfriend has and push the food down. This turns the float force off until the food is done frying. It will then become buoyant again and float back up to the surface. That's when you know it's done. This was fun. And I made it so that the deeper the object is in the fryer, the quicker it will cook. This means something alive like the crab or the fish are a bit harder to deep fry because they always fight to get back to the surface. So really, it's just a better idea and more humane to just kill them first before trying to cook them, so you can really push them down and they stay there. Phew, that was a lot of stuff, but I hope you share my excitement for the deep fryer. I think I am going to call it for this devlog. The next thing I am going to work on is getting a rough kitchen blocked in and modeled out. It is getting a little bit exhausting staring at a purple void. I think having a physical space to work in will also help rejuvenate my creativity and help me come up with a solid gameplay loop and story for the world. I would also like to start uploading devlogs more often, so I guess, expect shorter but more frequent ones in the future. Thank you for watching and enjoy this crab computer that I will explain later.
Just let me be your ladybug. 24 hours a day, I'll give you love.
You can count on that.
Just let me be your ladybug.
Baby.
24 hours a day. day. Love you and kiss you.